Hi everybody, it is River with By Jove Astrology, and today I have a tarot reading for the collective. This is for the month of June, and just like last month, we're going to be following the same questions. So I'm going to go over what prompts I pulled for each one. So the first two cards I pulled are the overall energy or vibe for the month of June. And so I have the Nine of Wands and I have the Strength card. Then the next two cards I pulled are for the challenge. And so that was the Ten of Cups and the Star. The following after that is how to deal with with our challenge, or the thing that's difficult. And I have the Queen of Swords and the Six of Cups. And the last two cards are the potential gift, so something that the universe is offering us. And that is going to be the Emperor and the Judgment card. So before we start the reading, I invite you just to close your eyes. And let's take a few deep breaths. In and out. Just connecting to your higher self, spirit, or your spirit guides to let whatever important message that is meant for you to hear come up. So as I'm reading, you might have a thought, there might be a specific image calling out to you. Definitely pay attention to them, because even if it doesn't necessarily match up exactly with what I'm saying, there's something there that Spirit is trying to have you hear. And as always, I recommend journaling after this, sitting with the cards. There will be journaling questions, which will be in the caption below. But they'll also be in my Substack, which is also linked, along with pictures of the cards. Okay, so let's begin. First one is the overall energy or vibe. So I'm going to move these two cards to the center. So we have, get it a little bit brighter here. We have the Nine of Wands and we have the Strength card. So this is the overall energy or vibe for the month of June. And so basically what this means is this is the energy that is in the air. It might be, just what people around you are feeling, what's happening politically, what is happening energetically in your body or in your home, or just your day-to-day life, and how that is interacting not only with yourself but people. So that's why there's going to be two ways that we can kind of see these cards, especially this overall energy and vibe. It's like it can be something that we are experiencing really strongly directly, or somebody in our life is experiencing this thing and therefore we are experiencing it with them. So we have the Nine of Wands. Let's start with that. And so you can see in the Nine of Wands here that we have a person who is battered and bruised, and behind them there is this wall of batons or sticks. And so if we think about how with the Nine of Wands, or the cycle of the Wands, right, you start at one, which is something that you're passionate about, that is coming in, is an exciting thing that you're starting in your journey. But by the time we reach the Nine of Wands, we've hit this point where we're basically energetically almost at our end. And so I was really thinking about the question that came up, which will be the journaling question for these cards, is where has your exhaustion created a boundary? Where is your exhaustion created a boundary? It really makes me think about, like, for example, if you are someone, or someone in your life is, working a job that is really difficult for them energetically, it just drains them completely. Even if it's something that they find interesting or exciting or that they're passionate about, by the time they get home after a long day, they are completely energetically depleted. And so often this person could be yourself or someone else in your life, right? When you're in a state of being so energetically drained that even someone, asking like, how are you, or how was your day, could create this reaction of kind of that fiery energy of needing to fight or push someone away because you don't have any space, right? So for example, if somebody, you get home and maybe your partner or your loved one says to you, hey, what do you want to have for dinner? Maybe even though you don't mean to, you snap, because when you hear that question, what do you want to have for dinner? In your mind, you're thinking, okay, I've got to go to the grocery store. I have to go, make a list. I have to plan the recipe. I have to cook. Maybe even if you're not cooking, I have to clean. There's all these things that come up and you're just thinking, you know what? I just want to go through a drive-through and I want to sit and I want to watch TV and I don't want to talk to anybody. On the flip side of that, you could be the person who your partner is coming home and they're totally depleted and, you're in the space of, oh, you're home. I want to cuddle. I want to talk. I'm excited to see you. And that person, just like in here, is just like, they have this, energetic boundary behind them, this stick where they're ready to fight you and they don't want to talk and they want to be left alone, even though they love and care for you. Because when we get to that point where we are just so, again, energetically depleted, there's no space for anything. We don't allow that. And so, again, thinking of the question, where is your exhaustion creating a boundary? And then let's go to the next question, or the next part of that, which we have the strength card. So how can this card play in to the overall energy and vibe of the month? And I really see this, that's with the strength card, the lion that's attacking. Again, that's that part of us or other people that is just so tired that even if you're going in to gently pet them, they see the hand coming in, they see you moving in, and they're readying for attack. And so that's where the second part of the journaling question is how can you better tend to your needs? And these needs might be our physical, emotional, energetic, our creative needs, but let's start with the physical, because that's where a lot of the energy in our body is, right? So we're getting to that point at the end of the day where we're just mentally taxed, or the person in our life is mentally taxed. And so it's this repeating pattern again and again. And that might be this whole month of June where this energy is in the air. It's like, for example, we need to go to work, we need to make money, we need to make a living. So it's not like we can completely take these things out, but what little things can we do during the day to tend to ourselves better? So perhaps by the time we get home or it's the end of the day, we're not completely burnt out. Now, I definitely understand that not in all our jobs that we have these spaces to take breaks. But that is going to be a part I'm going to talk about a bit with the Emperor and the Queen of Swords, how these things are going to come into play. And I just realized that as I set these down, these two cards were actually like that. So also too, it's like, okay, taking a break, some breaks during the day to kind of pace ourselves better energetically, to, saying to our bosses, look, this is the amount that I can handle, and, trying to find a way to renegotiate what tasks we have to take on. But also too, like, before we come home, maybe going for a walk or just letting our partner know or our loved ones know, like, hey, when I come home, I just need 30 minutes, maybe take a shower, listen to some music, find a way to reconnect to your body that isn't just TV is great, and relaxing is good, but find a way to tap back into your energy, to your inner fire, to your body. It could be in a very, very gentle way, like is in the Strength card. So just tapping in so that this boundary isn't so rightly up when we are interacting with other people, or finding a way to, you see that person in your life and they're struggling, and maybe say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make dinner tonight, or how about, every Monday I make dinner, or you take days switching back and forth to work with those people in your life so that some of that burden isn't completely on them. And And we will come back to those cards and kind of just see how all of these things are interplaying for the month of June. Okay. Now we go to our challenge. Even though the overall energy and vibe already sounded like a challenge, and it kind of is. So the challenge is the thing that is difficult. And it's kind of interesting because we have the 10 of Cups and we have the Star, which are two really just beautiful cards. And it took me a moment when I was seeing them in this place of kind of thinking like, okay, two wonderful cards, but these are in our challenging space. So what can that mean for us, right? And if you look at the 10 of Cups, you can see here that you've got this beautiful happy family and the rainbow and everything looks perfect. But something that's interesting as well with Pamela Colman Smith when she made these cards is she did a lot of theater production and design. And so in this card, you can see it looks like they're standing on a stage. And so having this in the challenging position makes me really think about, okay, this dream, it feels more like a dream than actual reality. And especially with the Star card, the Star is a card of hope, but also thinking about the stars, it's like you're making a wish for a dream that you want to come true. And so in the challenged space, right, I really feel like, there's this part of us, or maybe the people in our lives, where we're doing this really exhausting thing, this challenging thing, day in, day out, taking on all these responsibilities and draining ourselves. And we have this dream, or we have this fantasy of like, you know what, I'm going to work hard. I mean, there's a lot of that, like, I'm going to work hard and challenge myself for like an entire year. I'm not going to take any breaks. And then once I'm done, once I finally accomplish this task, then I can take a rest. Then I can go to this beautiful place with my family or my loved ones, my friends, and we're going to have so much fun together. And I have this whole fantasy about what life could be. But it's challenging also because dreams are great, but oftentimes it's pulling us away from the present reality. And so the question that I have for journaling today is, how can you bring parts of your dream into your present and daily life, right? So if you are like, I'm going to work really hard and then I'm going to go on this really fun vacation with my friends, right? And we're going to go to Europe and, to Paris and Milan and all of these things, right? But that's such a far away thing that we're driving towards. It's like, okay, what can I do in my hometown or the towns near me where you can have like a mini vacation, where maybe you can work together and you guys can rent a place so it's like shared, or even just like a little day trip where you're having this really fun fantasy element come in that you're dreaming about, but you're making it a day-to-day thing, right? Or your daily present life. Or like, okay, I want to go to Italy, but I can't. So I'm going to settle for making pizza at home with my family and watching an Italian movie. And like, even though that seems kind of silly and so small, it's just bringing these elements into our daily life so it's not this faraway dream. The other thing that also came to mind when I was looking at these cards was that this fantasy dream thing could also be something that is just so completely unattainable that we're not looking at it in this clear way. Like, for example, okay, you know what? I'm going to work so hard at work and my bosses are finally going to start to appreciate me and I'm going to get that promotion. And I'm finally going to get paid what I deserve. Or I'm going to work really hard at this thing and I'm going to become famous from it. Or it's going to bring me recognition. And so there's something there that isn't really matching up. And so you might be just like working so hard at something and it's not really creating what you want, right? Like you could be, for example, let's say you had a seed and it was for an apple tree, but you were like, no, I want this to be a pomegranate tree. And even if you tended and took such good care of this tree and gave it water every day and talked to it and all of these things, but then when the fruit came, it's still going to be apples, not pomegranate. So there could be this element of that. And the reason that I bring that up is because the next two cards I have are how to deal with this challenge. And let me just put these here. We have the Six of Cups and the Queen of Swords. So this is how to deal with the challenge. Let me focus that. You can really feel the energy difference between these two cards. We have this beautiful nostalgic moment of childhood, and we have the friggin' really strong Queen of Swords. And so when I looked at these two cards, especially the way that they're framing each other with the Queen of Swords in front of the Six of Cups, I was really thinking about, what is the Six of Cups filtered through the Queen of Swords? Because the Queen of Swords energy is really one of dissemination, of taking in information, and then basically separating truth from fiction, reality from fantasy. There's a part that is super objective and very logical, whereas the Six of Cups is nostalgia, it's dreamy, it's fantasy. And so that's where I really felt like it matched with the Ten of Cups energy and the star of this hopeful, wishful dream that, is really the question I wrote for that was like, how is a fantasy of yours disconnecting you from the present moment or disconnecting you from reality? And playing into that with the Queen of Swords, I wrote, how can you reflect on your fantasy? This also could be your past as well, with a more clear or objective lens. So basically, the Queen of Swords is asking us to take off our rose-colored glasses, asking us to look at the reality of the situation that we're in and the fantasies and dreams that we have. Because honestly, there are a lot of times where we have to just work our ass off. But again, thinking about how can we do this in a more realistic, more sustainable way, in a way that, we're not trying to just use the energy or emotions to buoy us through, but we have the stability there, we have the support, we're taking care of ourselves, we're nurturing ourselves. And then that brings us to the last two cards, which is the potential gift. And I really feel like all the cards this week are really playing with each other, and the messages feel really strong because again, we have this is the potential gift. This is something that the universe is offering to us that will help us deal with everything. And we have the Emperor and we have Judgment. So with the Emperor, a lot of times the thing that I see come up really strongly is about energetic boundaries. And I mean, even when you look at him with all this Aries energy, with all this fire energy, but also too, this is a person who is wise, who has experienced a lot, who's gone through many battles. And so he knows how to command a room. He knows how to, hold his space and to speak his piece. And he's very clear on that. And I say he, but this could be she, they, anybody, a person who has the wisdom of those years. And so I have a few questions for this. One is, what wisdom can you learn from those who are older than you, or from the past, or from history, right? And so, for example, there are a lot of battles that we are facing individually, but also as a community. And so it's not like, if, for example, if we have a boss who's treating us wrong, or we're not being paid right, or our boundaries are being infringed, or our rights are being taken away. It's not like we have to start completely from scratch. We're not starting at ground zero. There are so many amazing biographies and memoirs out there that are really amazing place to start, even if it's something it's like, okay, I'm not necessarily part of such a big political movement, but even understanding those little tiny pieces of those people's lives will really come into your own. And so I really feel like there is a wisdom, especially with, a lot of the planets moving into Aries, Saturn to Aries, Neptune into Aries. So it's like, look for those people who are the trailblazers. Look for those people who, were on the front lines, that were fighting battles for themselves and the people in their communities. And you can really soak up the wisdom that they have, right? There's something there that can really help us. We're not alone in our struggle. And then also, too, is just thinking about what wisdom have you accrued over time. Perhaps you're not to the full emperor energy yet, but every year of your life, you're learning something. And so if you imagine you are the emperor of your own kingdom and your own world, right? What have you learned thus far? What are the things, for example, that you would be saying to other people, that you'd be saying to your subjects, you'd be saying to yourself? Also, too, a lot of times with the emperor, you think about the kingdom that you are ruling is yourself and your own body, right? And so, your laws and your rules for yourself and your body might be radically different than other people, and that's okay, right? So for you, you might have like, my law or my rule that I have is that no matter what, I'm not working on Sunday. That is the law that's strong. I'm turning off my phone, or I'm just staying at home. I'm not answering an email, right? That is your law. And so someone else might come in their space and say, well, this is the rule that I have. So you need to follow the rule that I have, and you have to have that space. And I really feel like that is the judgment card here, coming in and announcing very clearly, very loudly, hey, this is what I have for myself, and this is what I'm sticking to. And oftentimes we might not be having that conversation with other people. We might be having that conversation with ourselves, because I might have that hard and fast rule that I'm not working on Sunday. But guess what I'm doing in the middle of the day? I'm checking my email. I'm sitting down and I'm writing some things. And so I'm going against this rule or law. And it's not to say that, you always have to. Sometimes in emergencies, there are certain boundaries that get, moved. But I think really taking this month to be really clear of like, how clear are you on your boundaries? Do you know what they are? How can you make it really clear to others what you will and won't do? How can you make it clear to yourself what you will and won't do? Because again, we have, if we look at these two cards here, can really feel the different energy between them, right? And the energy, the fire that is just being lost with the 9 of Wands, and the stableness of the Emperor, right? Because this is something, the 9 of Wands is not something that we can sustain forever. So we have to get clear on these things. So again, let's go over the cards. So for the overall energy and the vibe of the month, we have the 9 of Wands and the Strength card. And the question for that was, where is your exhaustion creating a boundary? How can you better tend to your needs? Physical, emotional, mental, energetic, creative, right? The next two cards were for the overall challenge that we're dealing with, and we had the 10 of Cups and the Star, and the question for that was, how can you bring parts of your dream into your present daily life? Or how is a fantasy of yours disconnecting you from the present moment? For the How to Deal cards, we had the 6 of Cups and the Queen of Swords. And the question that I wrote for that was, how can you reflect on your dreams or your past with a more clear, objective lens? And just kind of thinking again, what is the 6 of Cups filtered through the Queen of Swords? And the last one, the potential gift, was the Emperor and Judgment. And the question that we had for that was, what wisdom can you learn from those older than you or from history? Or what wisdom yourself have you accumulated over time? This one I had a lot because it feels really strong. How clear are you on your boundaries? Do you even know what they are? And how can you make it clear to yourself and others what you will or won't do? So those are the cards for the month today. Check down below to see what the questions were or see my Substack. And I hope that was helpful. And have a great day. Bye.